You've lived here in New Mexico for a while, either all your life or even for a few years. You certainly know many people leave our state each year, sometimes to get a better job, other times to further their education. And some who leave, they certainly return, but many don't. And this is a constant struggle for local leaders and politicians and policymakers. We often debate how to grow the economy and provide opportunities that would keep people here and encourage new business and highly skilled workers to come to New Mexico. Inside of that, Bloomberg Business reported earlier this week on the top 20 metro areas in the country that are losing residents, and Albuquerque was on that list. Our line opinion panelists are ready to debate what we should do with this information. I'm joined tonight by Daniel Foley, former New Mexico House Minority Whip, Rachel Sams, she's editor of the New Mexico Business First, Laura Sanchez-Rivey, one of our regulars, an attorney with Sanchez Legal Solutions. And we're glad to have Diane Snyder, a former Republican New Mexico State Senator and the Executive Director of the Greater Albuquerque Medical Association. And Rachel, let me start with you. Your paper last year actually touched on this subject by interviewing some folks, literally exit interviews, to find out why people had left the state. What's your overall take on what's happening in this phenomenon?
You know, a lot of it, I think, has to do with job opportunities.
Right.
And we each kind of looked at and discussed a story that appeared in the Wall Street Journal about how Denver is growing and attracting millennials, and jobs is such an essential part of that. So our whole struggle to create new jobs, new types of jobs for our workforce is a big part of that.
Right.
Throughout the country, everyone is kind of struggling with, there's this shift to a part-time workforce, to smaller term jobs. I think that may be happening here even more than in the country as a whole. And so if you see yourself with just one part-time opportunity after another, if you can't feel like you can make that leap to a long-term career, there's less keeping you here.
Just lost a good friend here to Phoenix for that very issue you just mentioned. She was going from part-time to part-time to part-time, and after 3 or 4 years, she was sick of it. And she's in her late 30s. It makes you feel like you're not quite contributing, you're not living your life, you're not really kind of getting there. Dan, you work in different communities in your capacities now. You're in Denver a lot, and one of the things that Rachel mentioned, that Wall Street Journal Dan Frosch piece, was they have had 3,200 firms open in Denver in the last 5 years, or 4 years rather, which is a phenomenal amount of jobs when you think about it. It's almost irresistible if you think about it.
You know, there's a couple things you got to realize, Gene. One of them is, you know, when I go to my our office in Denver, at the last 3 years, when I go to my office in Denver at any time, I have counted at most 7, averaged 4 of the high-rise cranes that are working right around the tech center.
That's right.
So that's a lot of, I mean, these are big buildings they're building. The other thing Denver has done a great job, I think, is partnering and working with Boulder and that tech transfer. You know, they've been utilizing that ability to take stuff to market, that ability to let the school, the University of Colorado, the whole incubator program they have, kind of start and then transfer that stuff to Denver and help the city and the communities be able to help them grow. And Denver's a great city. I mean, the vibe down, you know, you go downtown Denver, I mean, you know, they still got their sports stuff down there. They're still, you know, they still support their teams. It's a younger crowd. I mean, when I go up there, you know, I'm, you know, unlike when I'm with Laura and I'm usually the youngest person, I feel like the oldest person now when I'm up in Denver. And but it's you know, I can see why, you know, and it's got everything, you know. But what's sad, and to kind of bring this back to the discussion about New Mexico, it's sad. It's not much different than Albuquerque. You know, you're 20 minutes from skiing, you got a decent airport. I mean, you know, it's a very, but it's not just Denver. You know, we were in Boise this summer. Boise, Idaho, growing, lots of buildings, lots of stuff going on. And then when you're walking in downtown Boise, you would think you were in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So you got to ask the question, why? Because it's not the climate, it's not the weather, it's not the altitude. There's something that people are making a conscious decision to go to Denver and Boise and surrounding areas, and not choosing to come to Albuquerque. And we got to get serious about asking why.
Sure. Laura Sanchez-Rivey, that Bloomberg map that was in that story was interesting. There's the classic, starting from about Washington, D.C. going up, the northeast states, you could imagine some of those cities are losing people, you know, the Midwest. Then there's this huge gap of the country where there's El Paso, which was the #1 city, and then Albuquerque, then Los Angeles, way over here on the West Coast. And I just couldn't help but looking at that map thinking, what is going on here in our state that, to Dan's point, that makes people feel like they just can't give it a go here? Because I know a lot of people are willing to wait it out if something's good on the horizon. Are folks feeling like the horizon's too far in the distance? Is that what the problem is?
I think there's a feeling that the goalpost keeps getting moved. You know, they're definitely, I think people were willing to wait out the recession when things were bad, and they're hoping to see some recovery. But I do think that, you know, and I do a fair amount of traveling. When you go to, you know, some of these other areas, you really see how much more vibrant and how much more, you know, and I think to a certain extent, the traffic is a measure of that.
Right.
And there's certainly a lot more traffic going on in all of those cities than there is here.
Yeah.
But you just see so much more going on, and the opportunities are there for good paying, full-time regular jobs. I mean, Dan's making a great point about Denver. I'm sold. I mean, there's just, it really is compelling, and it's not
Yeah.
that much different from Albuquerque. I think that the cost of living also is comparable. You can find some really, really less expensive areas here, but in some cases they're not the greatest. The nicer areas are pretty comparable to the areas that, in Denver and Phoenix and even Las Vegas. So I just think that, especially for younger people, and to Dan's little comment, I'm not a millennial, but I'm definitely a Generation X, and I know I'm younger than you. And so, for anybody who's essentially doesn't have children,
Right.
and myself and my husband, I mean, we're a little bit more mobile, and I think a lot of millennials are definitely more mobile. And if they can find opportunities to make more money and gain some experience elsewhere, I think they're going to jump
And
on
more
it.
willing to make that move. I think,
Yeah.
I think most earlier generations were like, you grow up, you go to high school, you go to college, you pick a place, you buy a house, you stay.
That's right.
And you weather the storm. I think now, one of the things, I didn't mean to jump in, one of the things that I noticed in Denver too when we were up there talking, they're not building new houses in Denver. They're building apartments and condos.
That's right.
There's not a big influx of let's build housing developments and go to the Rio Rancho style stuff. They're not doing that. They're built. I mean, that place is filled with condos, townhomes, apartments. That people aren't wanting to buy homes. They're
Density,
wanting to buy,
density,
that's
density.
right.
Absolutely. Diane, good to see you, by the way. Glad you're
you.
here.
Nice to be here.
Absolutely. Interestingly, the overall question is, what do we do about this? It's a difficulty. We can't do something in the short term, certainly. But there are things out there that are getting a lot of pushback, like rapid transit, things that millennials are looking for if they're buying less cars, not willing to move out to the outer ring, as Dan's mentioning. Have we gotten our attitude about this correct? First of all, before you have to start building, you have to the right course, to go down. Are we there yet on that?
No, I don't think we are. I think that that the powers that be really don't know exactly where to take it.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody's asked the young people, where do you want to live? Where do you want to be centered? One of the things that I do know about Denver and Austin is that they have not only a vibrant downtown, but they have pocket communities.
That's right.
And where you walk and you play and you dine and go to the movies and everything within a 10-block area. And it's very much like the old Upper East Side of Manhattan is where you went, just like they converted Tribeca into that kind of place. And I think there are two things that really do make a problem or a challenge for us is, and I don't care who your provider is, but Wi-Fi and internet access are really horrible here.
Yes.
And
overpriced as well.
yes, and overpriced. And this is how they live. This is how these young people live. So if you don't want to be in the middle of something and have it dropped.
Right.
So that added to the rapid transit is how do you go? Because really right now, other than Nob Hill, everything's focused on downtown. Well, it's a heck of a long way from the far Northeast Heights down to, so let's find a place in the Northeast Heights to make a Nob Hill.
Gotcha.
So, and think in terms of not just one central location. Now, we also, I was joking earlier and said, we're not fun. We're not a fun city. We don't have, you fly into Denver or Austin and get off the plane and walk out of the airport and you feel the energy.
Yes.
You
I agree
know
with that.
it's so, and we don't have that here. And I think part of it is we need to ask what they want.
For quality of their lives, exactly.
Yes.
I think there's some changes coming though, Gene. To some of the point that I think is good news is there's that one entertainment company from Texas that passed us over that's now coming here. They're in the other. They've made a decision to come here. You got the folks at the water park that are looking to do something out on the west side. I think that we've got to figure out a way. I think one of the things that we failed at as a state is, and this is not a partisan thing, I think is we are misguided. We go off and we do spaceport, or we go off and we do this, or we go off and do that. And, Rail Runner serves a purpose, there's no doubt. But what good is the Rail Runner if you can't get anywhere from the Rail Runner when you get there? I mean, we should be, there should be a way to get around. There should be a way to get from the airport to the rail runner in moments, minutes. You go to Denver, they're building a high-speed train that's taking you right to the airport, right to downtown Denver. We can't even connect the rail runner with Albuquerque Airport so people could get off the train, get off the plane, get on a train and be in Santa Fe or anywhere in Albuquerque. And so I think that's something we got to look at focusing on, kind of like everybody said at the table, what is going to attract the millennials to keep them here? It's not going to be, the ranches 80 miles out of town. We know that it's the density, it's the ease of telecommuting to work, it's great opportunities, and yet we're really not spending the time and the resources to address that, I believe.
Rachel, let me swing back to the Mark Lotman interview with Sarah Gustavus a little bit earlier. It was interesting to me. Were you shocked at the amount of jobs, economic-based jobs that Mark laid out, the 5,500 plus, somewhere around there, that yearly, that we need to be, that's a daunting number.
It is a daunting number. I wasn't shocked by it because I've heard Mark talk about it a lot.
Gotcha.
He's been giving that talk, and he's been getting an audience for it because people are realizing more and more that need, that we really do have to address this job situation. But it is daunting because you can't look out there and say there is one obvious sector that they're going to come from.
Right.
We're going to have to focus on several things, I think, to make it happen.
Right. Interesting, Laura Sanchez-Rive, to hear him talk about solo workers, solo at home. You've been down that road a few times. I have too. Sounds like that's actually counting for something now. For the longest time in Albuquerque, it was almost dismissed. Oh, those are just onesie-twosies. Those people don't do anything. You know what I mean? That's an important part of our makeup now, isn't it?
And I think it was really important that he talked about support for that segment. And I don't think there's a structure in our government, either at the state or local level, to support those, single 1 or 2 person kind of operations that work from home. And those are really important also in terms of diversifying our economy. Interestingly enough, in terms of independent contractors, I had an opportunity this week to attend a meeting of Uber drivers. My husband drives for Uber from time to time. It's a very flexible thing for students. He's a student, so he does it on the weekends and he makes a few extra dollars. They have doubled since February, roughly February or March. They had 250 Uber drivers in New Mexico. Now they have 400 Uber drivers in New Mexico. And when you see that many people, all gathered in one place, talking about Uber and best practices and whatnot, it's a lot of energy. But, one thing I will say is, we're talking about millennials and how important it is to attract them. And I think that to a certain extent that's true. But attending this Uber event was amazing because there were so many more people there than just millennials. You had people from all age ranges and backgrounds, and really fascinating people, some of them very well educated. I spoke with one woman who had a degree in pharmaceutical chemistry. And was working, had a regular job, but the Uber situation allowed her to have an independent contract. Right. She had an independent contract that she could work on the weekends, and so a lot of people just picked their shift and worked to that particular shift, and it was a few extra dollars.
That's a new world,
so
isn't
I think being
right
able
there.
to, able to really figure out how these new businesses that are really taking off can fit into our society is a really important.
Got a few seconds left, Diane. This is Diane's. I'm sorry, Laura's mentioning there's policy decisions that go in this. There's, again, legislative decisions. We all got to get on board with this, don't we?
Yes, we do, and we have to stop. My plan's better than your plan. I mean, it's like, let's figure out what's going to work and what's best for New Mexico. Albuquerque, obviously, we pay a little more attention to here, but still, it's everywhere. You need, because we need these young people in the rural areas too, not just, I think we need to stop. I think we need to take it seriously.
There you go. And listen to them, as I say.
And
Rachel, real quick. We're about to hear from your old publisher, but you have a new boss coming in.
I do.
10 seconds. Who is she and what's going on?
Her name's Candace Beakey. She was previously the editor-in-chief of our sister publication in Houston. She's a veteran journalist and a very cool person. She's going to be amazing.
Welcome here. Now, up next, we reflect on changes in recent years at the mentioned Albuquerque Business First.